Lost his keys with that hooker. And to this day, we still haven't found him. Ethel killed him, or damn near killed him over that one. Holy shit!
Even though just before that, she texted me.
Crap! I was actually hoping you were leaving. I'm like, all right, that's one down. Don't take my picture. No photos, you paparazzi bitch.
It's going to happen.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No.
See?
No.
I don't. Oh wait, I'm using the wrong lens. I got a telephoto zoom lens.
Oh great, you can pick up every little pimple on that face.
So I can take off this in the meantime.
Yeah, well then you come up here and teach this panel, Mr. Smarty Pants. I'm serious. Always sit behind the smart kid. But remember this, during the tests, they mix them up so the guy in front of you doesn't have the same test.
I don't drink.
That's why I washed out and I'm not an auto mechanic and my father thinks I'm a disappointment and I'm here teaching a panel at a furry con.
Oh, if the person beside you sometimes it's the same test.
No, kitties.
They're only $1 each.
Oh man,
You never heard about that?
yeah, sure.
Maybe
Maybe I
like the
could have been an
Supreme
auto mechanic.
brand.
Or at least the guy up front who takes the credit card or wipes the floor or wipes the counter after everyone goes home.
One of the
This is a
one of the
tattoo.
greatest cheats
Yeah,
in
definitely
like
is.
the history of school was this guy had one of those like
And the problem is, I'm not sure if Dennis had any material regarding how it goes through school.
Give me a minute or two.
A minute or two. I'm dying up here. But I'm dying
For
here.
me, if it's up to question 10, we like show fingers to see which
Take
question
out
it
the
is and
jacket,
tap
I'm
the table
sweating.
that many
This
times
part
for
where you're gonna
A,
start seeing sweat going down
1,
my
D,
face. It's like,
4.
I had one, the high school teacher.
$30 an hour. I wasn't engineering, so I know
Talk to this man.
Yeah,
He
he
knows the way. Trust me. I've seen him. He doesn't do anything at work. Not a thing.
So would that mean that I would never ever have to go to my old slave way and everything, and then I could be staying at home and I could play on the...
Well, no, you have to be at work.
Yeah.
Or at least you have to pretend
Do I want
to be there. But I mean, the one time I think I came in and there was just a broom propped up with his coveralls on it and they were paying him.
Nice.
takes a lot of work to get out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Still
that's a
keep your
balance.
job, actually.
Never mind.
There's a balance because at one point avoiding work becomes so much work that it's kind of like, what are we doing here? I may as well just do the job.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's tough.
That's always great when Tiggs walks into my work and he has to work and I'm just
Needed to come 15 minutes early so we could at least fake our way through this. All right, well, you can get free food at a con too. This is an important one, I think. All you have to do is volunteer. Please, God, volunteer. I'm getting sick of doing all the work around here. But no, they'll give you free food at a con if you volunteer for 8 hours.
4
Is it only 4? Jesus, they owe me a
Twelve
buffet
hours.
pretty much.
Is it 8?
Oh no, Vancouver it was you need 12 hours.
12 hours. So
Well,
that's why you should come to Furry, because you need to do less work to get more food. And ours is a buffet. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
And ice cream. Isn't that right? You do like more than 12 hours?
That's if your house gets more points than the other house.
Right.
Otherwise, it's $2, which is still a good deal, but it's not quite getting
$2 for ice cream? Like this?
But this is not getting it for free.
yeah.
That's not what this panel is about. You can leave whenever you want. Oh.
Good, we still have
All right, so we've covered free poutine
Dink it so.
and sitting behind smart kid in class. Okay, who's old enough to gamble? You have a question? Please, because I'm
I
done.
have one of my teachers, Mr. Armstrong, so he could get through school in 3 years.
Tell me all about Mr. Armstrong.
He took an extra course each year. He'd go up to who looked like a smart kid in class and ask, "Hey, can you be a note taker?" In one of those classes, he took the girl's notes at the end of the year and got a better mark than her. It's like, so if you really want to coast through school, just go take extra classes, grab notes, and just study for the exams if you don't need
Spent like 150.
a great mark.
And I also think really the key there is home ec, shop, job.
Drama.
Yeah, definitely drama. Stay away from math and sciences. Those just waste valuable time.
History's another good one.
Yeah?
I have to go into all of these math
I don't
Never
know.
changes.
science courses.
It's true. You can cheat
I
off.
take nothing but science courses.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, the
psychology,
test never
sociology, biology.
History.
The wording might, but in general, no.
The date's always the same.
The date's always the same. What year was the War of 1812? I was like, 1987? By the way, I failed history too. Just so you know.
Good thing you were born in Canada then.
Oh, yeah. All right, so.
So it is 8 hours.
It is 8 hours weekly. See, all the more reason you should come to Archon and volunteer instead of going to Stinky the F.
12 gets you right.
Yeah, exactly. You could even come for free next year and coast through and get a free meal and free reg for the following year. And then you are doing double. Oh, this is gold.
Free reg. And I mean, if you volunteer at the con store, you get to sit down all day.
That's brilliant.
Good job.
And I'll tell you. Oh, thank God! I was dying up here.
You have no idea how much you reassess your life's goals when you're sitting in a disgusting, greasy hotel bathroom staring at a toilet that won't flush, and I'm hearing your name on the radio, or your voice on the radio. It's like, I like your seat, by the way. Oh, yeah, thank you. I like yours as well.
Men's Warehouse?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So, we've covered sitting behind smart kids,
Oh,
how to get free food and free reg at a con by volunteering.
that's actually a good. Oh,
Yeah, I thought that was good. I was like, dude. And apparently we have lower reg, we need less time on volunteer staff than most other cons. All the more reason you should come here.
that's much better.
So, we covered the free poutine, because that falls under, or not free poutine, free dog's breakfast, because that falls under that. But we haven't gone into dodging the hotel bar tab.
Okay.
Free samples at Costco. This one falls later. This is like advanced right here. How to use a set deck and request hour. Yeah.
Actually, you could just use.
Remember the olden days when you actually when you want free music, like screw Napster, screw all that. All you need is a box of blank cassettes. Don't get the expensive ones; they cost too much. Get the cheap ones, and the phone number for K97. And you can put together a wicked mixtape in about a week.
Yeah, it takes a little bit longer depending on the radio station. The thing to bear in mind too is you don't even have to buy the cassettes because sometimes you can. Well, actually now it's a little difficult to get the free cassettes.
Oh yeah, you used to send the free cassettes in the mail that you could just tape over the
Yeah,
tab and
tape
record over them.
record over.
And the best thing, actually, if you can disguise your voice, you can make a mixtape an entire 1 hour request hour. If you know how to change your voice.
Yes, Miss Miggins, I'd like to hear Stairway to Heaven again.
It's how much of a mixtape if it's the same thing over and over again. It's the unmixed tape.
The unmixed. I like Stairway to Heaven. What can I say?
You gotta be quick on that play recording.
20
Oh yeah,
seconds
yeah, yeah.
of
When-
stuff.
It never fails. I'll be halfway through talking. They'll start the song. You'll be like, no! Ah, I missed the first part.
That's why you have to request it again.
Yeah, that's why I had to request it right the second time. Like, I got it.
Hour long
So
still.
this actually is the advanced.
That's advanced level coasting through life and getting free shit. Oh no.
Don't mind me, I'm just coaching.
You've already missed the important parts of the lesson, just so you know.
I was in potions class. No,
Is that what they call the bar?
Yes. That actually brings us to the getting free casino drinks.
Oh yeah, because now you're the expert on this one. That's
Yes.
why I was waiting for you.
Free casino drinks. That's a really good one because now you can't go right on the strip because they're starting to crack down on the free drinks now. But if you go a block or so off the strip in Vegas, it's really awesome because so long as you're playing, they'll come and they'll offer you free drinks. Now you generally give a tip, but that's for chumps. But the great thing is all you do is you sit in front of a random machine, and then when you see the cocktail waitress, you just like suddenly start pretending to swipe your card, and you start to hit some random buttons. Or what usually works really well is if you go with someone else that does have money, like BC Breakaway, you just stand behind him, and you look like you're giving advice, and then you look important, and then you get free drinks out of it. Really awesome.
I actually wanted to see if we could bring in BC as a special guest on the panel. I want to know how it is that, well, dude, when it comes to getting free stuff, BC is the king.
BC Breakaway is the sole reason that Dollarama's stock has doubled year over year for like the past 10 years. So.
Well, BC Breakaway and our con.
Yeah. You might actually be CEO of Dollarama for all I know. So.
Well, why don't we see? We're about 15 minutes. Why don't we see if we can get him in as a special?
We'll both ask him.
Yeah, well, you're going to do it the chump way. That's a lot of work.
No, all you do is you have some macros set up so you can just send it to him. And then it's really easy that way.
Yeah, I do. No, it does. Maybe I should have paid the phone bill this month.
That wouldn't be very good for this panel.
Ah, he knows it's me. He's like, no, all the no's. I have nothing to do with this. Straight to voicemail. All right, well, why don't we move?
Oh, that's not working so well.
He knows it's us.
Yeah, probably.
Where's Rax? Get Rax in his little radio.
He's actually right next door. Oh well, we might have to. Okay, well let's see.
All right, well,
Ooh, actually, you know one that's really. Speaking of BC Breaker, one that's really applicable to how to getting free stuff is. It works really well with this con. Is you go somewhere and you check and see what the return policies are, and then you get it all, use it for the event, and then you take it back.
yeah, I mean, I see you still got the price tag on the inside.
Yeah,
Right
yeah. Well, how do you think I'm sending it back? You can't send it back if the price tag's still on it.
Will they take it back with the sweat stains on it?
Probably not.
No.
So you can suck those out.
With a straw.
Yeah.
With a straw. Okay, well, why don't I got an idea? So, you check. Is there any other free casino perks we should know about?
Ooh, this is a good one that I got to try in January. So most casinos that you go to, you can get signed up for the player card, and they actually give you like bonus bucks that are typically used for like they expect you to go to gamble, lose it all, and just keep spending money. The great thing I found, you can go get your player's card and go straight to the restaurant and use the balance that they give you to go straight for your food. You can go to one casino after another, and you don't have to pay for anything, so long as they're different companies.
Why don't you guys have notepads out for this? This is what I want to know. I'm gonna see if I can get DC here as a special guest, and I'm gonna leave you drowning for a good 2 minutes like you did to me.
That's okay. If I just start playing music on here, we'll have some intermission music. Oh, your phone just vibrated.
It might. You're probably like, Fernando, why are you phoning me? I'm right back.
Let me see. Let's go over those. Those are some horrible notes.
I got a Bluetooth speaker if you want one.
If we could get them on the phone, that'd be perfect. Dodging expensive drinks at the hotel bar.
That's easy.
Yeah, well, usually you hang out with Tiggs and you just tell him that he's paying. He doesn't run away.
Oh,
So
exactly.
That's the easiest way.
Or what you do is you pretend you're there, forgot my wallet, and they'll have to sit there and they'll take the fall and be like, yeah, you're gonna have to wash dishes.
I actually know several people that conveniently forget their wallet every time they go out with friends for drinks. And as long as it's a different set of friends you go with every time, you can usually get away with that a few times.
I mean, like, I know a friend who literally just says, hey, who wants to go out to eat? You're paying.
Yep. Oh. Well, since we're all furries, we probably know a few people like that. So.
You? Yeah, one of you.
Well,
My turn. What did we just cover?
telling everyone at the bar that Tiggs is paying for it, so that's how you get your free drinks.
Well, no, you just bill it to a random room that's not yours.
No,
That's easy.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I've seen lots of people going up and making friends with the normal people and getting names, figuring out room numbers. You didn't hear that from me.
You use fake names too.
Unless
The
you're
normal
checking the
people
list.
don't. The furries will. They'll be like, I'm
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm in room 36
Lone
something
Saber or
with
something like that. It's
Iffy
like,
Fox
Star.
Manchild.
Iffy Fox Manchild. Did you reg this year?
He did, actually. I think it was my fake reg that I created.
That's the other thing. We get free reg. Because we know how to get you.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
So if you
Skills.
hacking skills are a definite plus. If you're good enough, you can get out of photo radar tickets too. I'm not that good.
Just takes 5 of them.
Just take off your plates, that's another thing.
3
But
comes in.
why even have a plate on your car if you don't pay for the registration?
When the hell was the last time you paid for registration?
I don't know, not for a long time.
1985?
He still doesn't have registration.
Yeah.
But sir, we haven't used these plates since the 70s. You know that, right?
Oopsies, I think I broke the pen.
Nah, it's already it's been
Okay.
screwed up for a long time.
Yeah, but that is true. I mean, it's hard to you know ding someone for not having registration when it's just expired. So,
Exactly.
and technically, you have a registration. I mean, it just goes back a few decades, but technically, you have registration, so you can probably fight that in court.
But you have to move.
You probably could. I mean, yours
Move
would
2 or 3 times and then they can't.
yours is still written on sandstone, like
Yeah,
sharp chisels
chisel.
into it or something.
Back in the gospel days.
Yeah, back in my day.
Oh.
Ah.
Yeah, well, horses are less finicky than cars. So is Fernando actually going to?
No, he apparently actually had to do real work or something. I don't know.
Oh no.
Or I was like, Rax, do you know anything about show coasting through life? You want to finish this off first?
So I don't know.
We didn't cover that. We did cover the bar town.
Yeah. Oh, and the free mixtapes.
Yeah, we got free mixtapes under control. Yeah. 10 out of 10. You think I did that well?
Yeah.
Thanks,
That's
buddy.
great. Oh.
You guys are missing the big one.
We're saving the pinnacle for last.
Oh no.
Well,
Go to college.
College.
that is
Go
true.
to college, get your student loan, then when you're done college, you declare bankruptcy and your student loan gets wiped out.
See, I told him he should.
Yeah, you should be.
Apparently.
You need to get a better suit for next year.
Yeah.
You can be up here with us.
Well, take those in. I know how to do it.
That is true.
Well, yeah, like I said, sometimes I go into his office and he's not even there. It's just where he works. It's not even him. It's just a broom with his coveralls on it and a little like a freaking mannequin head or something. And it's
We'll
like,
send you Don Cherry's top 10 fashion tips, and you'll be able to be up here next year.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
Also, number 3 on the list was getting your initials embroidered on the cuff of your shirt. That way, if you get drunk and you look at it, you might remember your name.
I just sharpie my room number on there. That's the important one. Well, mind you, not like I've ever paid for a room at a con. It's kind of like, hey, you got some spare space on the floor, dude?
How's it going?
That actually is true, because you can't, I mean, all you have to do is find a roommate and tell them, yeah, you just sleep on the floor for really cheap. And then all you have to do is make sure you get to the room before they do, and just pass out sprawled on the bed, and then what are they going to do?
Or the other
Well,
one.
they
the
actually
other
might
one
do
is
a
if you
few things
get
too.
one of those roommates that's like, yeah, no problem. I'll get you on Sunday. Check out at 6 a.m. It's the only time you ever got to get out early. Check out at 6 a.m.
Just never leave the color room.
There is that.
It is true. Depending on what you're doing there, you might not be able to get out either. So, depending on who you're with, you really might never get out. Or depending on who you're with, you might never actually make it out of the hotel alive either. So, that's the long sleep. So, but that's also the easiest way to get out of life really cheap too. Going out with a bang, talk about it. Just usually when you go out with a bang, you don't usually expect to be a gang bang. But hey, whatever. Anyway. Is this 18 plus panel? I can't even remember.
I'm pretty sure it's not. He's like,
oops. Oh, that really broke.
yeah, that's a free hotel.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a free pen, so
I will
guess-
just steal another one. I'll bet you they got a whole bunch of Ramada ones they're just giving away right now.
Probably.
I should ask. I use free Ramada pens. I haven't bought a pen in Lord knows how many
Yeah, I
years.
can tell. Speaking of the Stone Age.
Yeah, from the 88 Olympics.
Yeah, it looks like actually, I think it looks like a Hudson's Bay pen.
Are they still
They're
around?
not bankrupt.
Yeah,
are they?
it's still around.
Actually, no, this is probably too old for that. I don't think the Hudson's Bay had been discovered by then. Oh, okay. Well, we do have Costco free samples. That's a really good one too. In fact, I've been thinking that not only can you get through life really cheap, but you could probably make money. I think that someone needs to make an app to actually map out the Costco free samples. So,
The problem is we need to pay some.
no, you just you tell them
pretend
you're
we're gonna
gonna
pay them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Or
you're
you
on
walk
retainer,
in
and then
with the
it's
person
like the
that
check
has the
bounce. It's
card.
like, we had a check.
That's true too. Getting into Costco, you just have to look like you're going in with some other family too.
Well, either that, or what you do is you go in. I'm just going to get a hot dog. You go that way, and then you cut back through the cash.
Or you tell them you're going to get a registration. Because then they let you
yeah,
in.
we're going to renew.
Yeah, exactly.
I lost my card.
Walk through the entrance.
Yeah.
Exit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Check there.
That is true. Or
And,
just
and God forbid you actually paid for your membership. Their return policy is amazing. It's like, so I want to return this water slide I bought here at school. It's like, we haven't sold this for 16 years according to our computers.
I want to return my membership.
Oh, here's a full refund for the year. Pretty much.
It's like the
That's how they
gas
do
out of
it.
your car.
So I'm gonna start buying all my tires here. It's like, I'd like to return these tires. There's no tread left on them for some reason.
Your winter tires and return them in the spring.
These don't look right on
I
my
just
truck.
lost my
That would possibly work. Oh, speaking of coasting through,
I can buy them off you.
Hi, Kellogg's.
Fuck you, Sparkles.
You were dubbed Sparkle.
I'm sorry. What did you just say?
Oh, did you bring the cutout for him this year?
Yes,
Excellent.
I did.
Excellent. We'll have to take a peek at that.
Oh, joyous.
Eventually.
Actually, the panel's probably long enough. You can probably give everyone a sneak peek.
Eventually.
He's like, as soon as I can stop using this chair to brace myself standing up. Well, now you're just reverting to a hockey stick.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Your point.
We're getting
Party
shut down.
food is here.
Oh,
Hold on. We're actually gonna get shut down for a second. Yes!
no. I'm running out of stuff to talk about.
I've been out of stuff to talk about for 5 minutes. You've just been running the show now.
Yeah, well, I like to talk. That's about it. I don't talk about anything important, but that's beside the point.
Well, that's the whole point.
Well, hang on. In your job, because I mean, we've talked about how to coast through his job, but you're in IT.
Yeah.
That's got to be all about coasting through work.
Yes, it is.
Unless you have coworkers like mine, then it's a lot. It's like having to follow a dog with a
Well,
fucking
hang on.
shovel.
Wait. Maybe she's actually smarter than she lets on.
Oh, she definitely is.
Yeah. She's
So
like,
maybe
"What?"
she's coasting through life.
That is probably the most valuable lesson. Because we only have actually 3 minutes left.
Oh, thank God.
That you can walk away from with this panel.
Do you want to head that out?
If you were assigned a task and you do it bad enough, they will not ask you to do it again.
Yeah.
I want to get seats.
I'm just waiting for the village to fall apart,
Yeah.
possibly cause a lawsuit. I'm like, well, I know I'm not head of construction next year.
Yeah, but yeah, Costco free samples you have to be very careful about. I mean, you don't want to waste too much time, but you should go through to at least get an idea of the right order to eat, because they're going to have some dessert things, they're going to have some appetizer things, or you can just put them in your pocket, and then you can like pull the
Well, I mean,
bundle out after.
they got some really light duty stuff like Cheetos and shit. Just stay away from that. Let's just fill it.
Yeah, that's kind of a
You
waste.
gotta go for you want to go for pastas, deli section. Definitely when they got the meat slicers out, you there plate hand like just have a plate. Just
Fish.
I'll try that too. No.
The other thing you have to
Fish
do,
out.
if you're really charismatic and really good on the spot with conversation, is you can go over to their clothing section, try to find clothes that match the person doing the samples, and just offer to take over for an hour. And then next thing you know, you're going away with like 10 pounds of bacon and like an electric pan. And then you can actually start selling stuff out in the parking lot. You can just start selling that stuff.
Well, I mean, it used to be. I remember us talking last year about, or the year before last, about you can actually, since they have clothes there, you know, you can walk in looking like Don Cherry, and you know, walk past looking like you next, and then you maybe not. You.
Walk out naked. Get escorted out naked.
Like me.
So,
That only happened once.
free room and board though. Only for 24 hours though.
24 hours longer on an indecent exposure.
And then sometimes your parents find out too, which is really good.
Aw.
Unless your parents are equally cheap, and then they'll just understand that you're well. Those are the breaks. So.
Yeah. But did we?
Ours to study furries.
We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
How can you milk rice?
No,
Just look around this con.
I'm a little scared about sending stuff in the mail when it comes to furry stuff because one of my favorite ethics things we ever had to do, because everything we do goes through an ethics board. I did a study on furry porn a few years ago, and so
You jumped right into the deep end. You had to.
Oh no, that was after 5 years of doing research. We did that. And so I went to the ethics board and we said, okay, so just so we're clear, we're doing furry porn study. They said, okay, you have to send us all of your stimuli.
Oh,
And I'm like, just to clarify, I'm going to need to send you an envelope full of
Explicit
pornography.
material.
I'm like, in other contexts, this is considered like sexual harassment. I'm just being clear. And so I always felt compelled to send like a bottle of wine and like an apology note along with
See,
it.
that just sounds like you're just trying to seduce them. You're really
Well, my argument was going to be that it makes a lot more sense when you're a little drunk and try not to remember what you're.
How does that not sound worse?
Okay, fair point.
Or you can just
Send
upload
them
it to
a
a
cake
perfect
that
and
says
send them.
sorry for being a furry on it, and that'll do.
maybe slip a $20 bill into the ethics form.
Yeah.
That's really good when you're trying to.
Probably have to add a 0 or 2 to that.
Yeah.
Probably have to be zeros on a $20 bill.
So I'll wait another minute or two. Wow, good audience. I'm excited.
And you were worried.
He's always worried.
Yeah, sure.
How would you define sociology?
How would I define sociology? Social psychology without data. One of the researchers on our team is a sociologist, so I give her a hard time. So I was comparing it to social psychology, and I say that social psychology is the study of the individual within groups, and sociology is the study of the group of individuals.
Or social psychology, or sociology is someone who just can't do math but wants to study people.
I rip on sociologists, and I don't mean to. It's the problem is we're so close in what we study that we beat up on each other all the time. They'll say that social psychologists are sociologists without theories. So, yeah.
Oh God, now I'm having you just keep presenting Trudeau for the first week.
I got some sick fantasy, dude.
Some might argue the more time you spend
Oh,
studying
yeah.
the better.
Okay, so maybe I'll get started here. The first little bit is an intro anyway, so if folks are still papering in, that's fine. Cool, so thank you all for being here. Bright and early this morning too, without coffee. Well, some of you have coffee, I see. So, cafe, your daily dose of it. So just before we start here, how many folks have seen me give one of these talks before online or anything like that? How many of you have never seen a talk like this before on furry psychology? How many of you have no idea who the hell I am? Awesome, cool. You're my ride here today.
You're a crazy man who got into my car and bought me coffee.
I bought you coffee at least. That's more than some people get. Okay, so the one request I have for this, it is an hour and a half long section of time. The talk does not run an hour and a half long, don't worry. I purposely given extra time because people have lots of questions at the end, so I want to leave lots of time for that. To that end, can I please ask that there's no questions during? If only because I want to make sure we don't get bogged down in questions and then never get to the end. I don't want to rush the last 20 minutes of the talk. So there's plenty of time for questions at the end. Can we all agree to that? Cool. Can you hear me in the back, by the way? Am I talking loud enough, or do you need me to?
What was that?
So if I do start talking too fast, or if I'm talking too quiet, just tell me to shut up, or tell me to slow down, or speak up, or whatever it is you need me to do. Cool? All right. So I guess we'll get started. So this panel, as you can see here, is furry psychology. I like really silly subtitles for my talks, and this year I decided to go old school. So yeah, Freud wouldn't even know where to begin. Although maybe Freud wouldn't be so bad on furries, so hard on furries, because Freud did say that time spent with cats is never wasted. So maybe he'd be cool with the furry thing. Maybe. So, oh, I'm supposed to be on this side. All right, so there's a pillar in my way. Great. So that's Nuka. It's me. Hello, everyone. And my confession right off the bat, my sort of getting my furry credentials out of the way, is that I'm a furry. So, gasp. I just came out as a furry there. And actually, it's kind of a big deal as a talk for me because the Alberta Furries were my first group of furries. 8 years ago, I jumped into the Alberta Furries. They were my first exposure to furries. I had to move away to go to grad school to run off and learn about furries. But yeah, this is sort of my result, you may be leading to people leaving the fandom that we all know and love, and we're better off as a fandom when we're bigger. This doesn't mean, of course, that everything should be considered drama. It doesn't mean there aren't legitimate grievances. Sometimes there can actually be real conflict that's worth addressing. In these instances, go to the police, go to the proper authorities. But let's try to avoid petty squabbles getting blown out of proportion and causing, conventions to get shut down, for example. That's my soapbox. So what furries think? Let's dive into the psychology of what's making furries tick. So one of the things we looked at is anthropomorphism. Furries anthropomorphize animals. But we ask ourselves, is it the case that furries anthropomorphize the world around them? Do they see their cars being more human and their computers being more human, or is it really specific to animals? What we found from our data is that furries anthropomorphize animals and they anthropomorphize stuffed animals. But they were no more likely than anyone else to anthropomorphize cars or appliances or computers. Everyone will look at this and see a face. It's not just a furry thing. Fantasy. So this is sort of my little baby. This is my precious little project that I've been working on for the better part of a few years. It just got published this year. And the gist of it is that you can't treat fantasy as sort of a unidimensional construct. You can't say fantasy is a good or a bad thing. It really depends on who's engaging in the fantasy and why they're engaging in it. So furries have a very weird kind of fantasy. Furries spend a lot of time with these very vivid fantasies. Furries are more creative individuals than the average person, but it's not necessarily bad. So bad fantasy is, I'm not paying my bills because I'm playing World of Warcraft till 6 in the morning and not going to work tomorrow. That's sort of negative fantasy. When you actually look at positive and negative fantasy, furries engage in a lot of this healthy fantasy, more so than the average person, but they're no more likely, statistically, to engage in more of this negative fantasy. So furries have very active imaginations, but they're not out of touch with reality. At the end of the day, they know when to turn it off and when it's work time or school time. So just because furries have very vivid and active and creative imaginations doesn't mean they're maladjusted. Okay, this is a cool study. So someone had asked us a few years ago, are furries really bad at telling human faces apart? Like they spend so much time looking at animal faces and furry faces. Does that mean they're bad at looking at human faces? So we thought, let's test it. So we tested furries against a bunch of college students. And what we did was we had them look at hundreds and hundreds of pictures of furry faces, human faces, and fursuit faces. And so what they had to do is look at all these faces and rate them all, do a distraction task for 10 minutes, and then we showed them hundreds of other pictures, some of which they'd seen earlier, and say, did you recognize this picture from earlier? So it's kind of a face memory task. And what we found was that furries and non-furries were pretty much identical in recognizing human faces. So furries were just as good as anyone else at telling human faces apart. Furries were freakishly good at recognizing furry faces and fursuit faces, like better than human faces. Now, has anyone ever known someone who's been able to tell a car model just like that? A car goes by and they can tell you it's a 1960 Ford. So a lot of people know someone like that, right? My dad is very much someone who's like that. He can look at a car and say, oh, that's this model because I can tell by the shape of the hood ornaments and the windshield.
Mind you, I work in the industry, so.
Yeah. So we think that what's happening is that furries are doing something similar to that. So whereas a non-furry might look at this and say, well, it's blue and he's got big eyes and he's got floofy ears, furries are going, it's this kind of artist, it's this species, it's this subspecies, it's got this kind of a fur. They're recognizing all these little traits that non-experts, that non-furries aren't picking up on. And we think that's why furries are really, really good at recognizing fursuits and furry faces. All right, so we're going here. This is my warning right now that if you're squicked out or bothered by sex or porn discussions, we're not going to get graphic, we're not going to show anything or whatever, but we are delving into kind of a PG-13 topic here, so just be aware of that if this makes you uncomfortable. That's my little caveats. We are going to try and keep it tasteful. Okay, so in terms of violent content in the furry fandom, we find that the furry fandom is actually less violent than other fandoms. So there's actually less violent content. In terms of pornographic content, however, that's my one tasteless joke, I'm allowed one. Okay, so the furry fandom contains much more pornography than we find in, say, the anime fandom. That said, we find that furries are a little bit more motivated than other fandoms by sexuality, but keep in mind, on a 7-point scale, we're talking about lower than midpoints. And if you remember, things like belongingness and community were way up here on the scale. So sex does kind of play a small part in it, but it's really about community. It's really about having fun with your friends and family in the fandom, but it's not really about sex. Pornography exists in the fandom. Perhaps this is the least shocking thing in the world. 96% of male furries look at furry-themed pornography. About 17% say they exclusively only look at furry-themed pornography. 78% of females in the fandom say they look at furry pornography. About 2.2% say the only pornography they look at is exclusively furry. We tend to find that, again, men have a much more positive attitude towards pornography than women in the fandom do. This may be because the fandom is predominantly male and a lot of the artwork is geared towards a male audience, so there may be more for men to, it's sort of directed towards a male audience. So there's a couple of slides here that I presented at a sex conference earlier this year, where I was trying to make the argument that furry is not a fetish. It doesn't make sense to call furry a fetish just because there's pornography in the furry fandom, and here are my slides to explain why. If furry were a fetish, when we ask furries, you know, why, what kind of artwork do you prefer, you would expect them to say, well, duh, the erotic kind. And yet when we ask furries, you know, do you prefer non-pornographic, pornographic, or do you have no strong preference? Furries tend to have a small preference for pornographic arts, but really furries just like furry art, right? It doesn't really matter whether it's got boobs or it's got a bulge or not. Furries just like it if it's furry themed. And in the same way, when we ask furries, are you motivated to be a part of this fandom because of pornography? Again, if it were a fetish, you'd expect a huge bar here. Everyone would say, well, duh, that's why I'm here. And yet, most furries say, no. The porn is there and it's great, but that's not why I'm here. You know, and in theory, you could take all the sexuality out of the furry fandom, and there would still be a furry fandom. There would still be stuff that furries like. So it doesn't make sense to characterize it as a fandom, because this is not, or as a fetish, because that's not what a fetish would look like. If you took all the sex out of a fetish, there wouldn't be much left there, right? So it makes much more sense to call furry a fandom than to call it a fetish. And this is one of the things that the media consistently gets wrong. They say, oh, furry's a fetish. The data just don't hold up. Okay, my favorite study that we ever did. So we had furries look at pornography for science, because we're like that. So they looked at clean artwork, nude artwork, erotic artwork, explicit artwork, 4 categories. It was both furry and non-furries who wanted to look at how they rated furry and non-furry art. We counterbalanced it, so it had some straight artwork, some gay artwork, some lesbian artwork. But we needed to compare furries to something. So we got a bunch of unsuspecting college students to do it too. These poor college students thought they were coming in to do a study on pornography, and we kind of blindsided them. But this is based on the idea of how are furries perceiving pornography. Because our hypothesis was that a lot of furries expect backlash. A lot of furries expect that if the average person saw furry porn or knew furry porn existed, they would go, oh my god, furries are all perverts and this is horrible, this is perverse, this is terrible. What actually happened? What we found was that furries actually rated furry pornography more explicit than non-furries did. Furries were saying, oh my gosh, don't look at it, it's super, super explicit. And the non-furries are going, that's nice, can you go back to the non-furry stuff? I was digging that. So the non-furries were actually not nearly as bothered by the furry-themed pornography as furries expected. So despite this expectation that furries have of how non-furries will react to it, the reality is the average non-furry usually doesn't care. Usually when you mention that furry porn exists, they go, okay, not my cup of tea, whatever. So maybe it's not worth being super defensive and super sort of expecting the world to burn you if they found out you were a furry. Another thing we found, just sort of a longitudinal study where we tracked the same furries year after year after year, is that as you spend more time in the fandom, you become more out about being furry. You tell more people around you that you're a furry, it becomes harder to hide, which leads to the question, well, why doesn't everyone just be openly furry? And if you spend any kind of time on the internet, you know the reason why. You know that's because furries get a lot of backlash. When we ask furries compared to other fan groups, how much do you expect the world around you to kind of judge you for being a furry, judge you negatively for your fan interest? Furries score the highest on this scale. Furries expect a lot of disapproval from the world around them. And indeed, most furries say that they wouldn't tell certain people about their identity, and indeed, compared to the other fan groups, furries are the least likely to admit to being a member of this group. So furries tend to play being a furry kind of close to the chest. And this may have something to do with the fact that furries have a lot of experience of being bullied. In fact, when we look at furries, especially furries sort of in their adolescent years, between 11 and 18 years old, they're much more likely than the average person, 62% versus 40%, to have been bullied. So furries are almost 50% more likely to have been bullied physically and verbally, and this is even after controlling for the fact that furries are more likely to be gay, something which is also likely to get you beaten up. So above and beyond that, you're still getting picked on for having this interest that you try to keep to yourself. Now, one of the things we know from psychological research is that bullying is one of the most wretched things you can do to a person. It takes its toll on your self-esteem, it makes you more anxious, it really beats up a person and takes its toll on them. And we know this from research, and yet, despite this, despite the fact that it should be screwing furries up, having this history of it, that's not what we tend to find. Furries tend to be well-adjusted. Compared to anyone else, like the average person, furries are pretty comparable in terms of their self-esteem, their psychological well-being, the quality of their relationships, their life satisfaction, and figuring out who they are as a person. So they should be screwed up, but they're not. Why? Well, it's because furries have other furries. They have the furry community to fall back on. Furries help other furries when they're down. So we find, for example, that in addition to getting money or other sort of financial support from other furries, furries tend to provide a lot of psychological support. So this is having a shoulder to cry on, having someone to talk to when you're having a bad day. Furries are there for each other. And in fact, if you've been bullied in the past, you're more likely to turn to furries for help. If you believe that we're all kind of in this together, you turn to other furries for help. If you've given help to other furries in the past, it's like a karmic bank. You sort of put something in, you've helped other furries, and in turn, furries were there for you when things are going bad for you. And indeed, you're more likely to give help if you're an older furry in the fandom. If you've been around for longer, you actually tend to give help to the younger furries in the fandom. If you're a compassionate person, you give more help to other furries. And if you've asked for help in the past, you're more likely to give help to the furry fandom in the future. So the short version is, furry fandom is sort of a place where you can be accepted for who you are and where other furries are there for you when the chips are down. And that really is why furries aren't as screwed up as you would expect based on this lifetime of bullying that many of them have experienced. So, and we know from other research that having this group of people who are there for you is the best predictor of well-being. More than how much money you have, more than how much you like your job, more than where you live. It's, do you have people who are there for you when life is kicking you while you're down? And furries have that in spades. So it's one of the best predictors of well-being. It's why furries are doing so well. And you can see that because of a phenomenon called post-con depression, which is a good example of what happens when you take furries away from their fandom. So how many of you have heard of post-con depression? Yep. It is absolutely a real thing. We measured it. Oh, that's my silly comment. Yeah. It is absolutely a real thing. And if you've never been to a con, as a heads up, it's coming. So we actually studied furries at Anthrocon, and then the same furries a week later, a week after Anthrocon, we gave them the same survey. And what we found is that in the days following a convention, you become more easily bothered, your mind wandered more, you were more depressed, everything felt like more of an effort, you were less happy, you felt more lonely, and you felt less motivated to do things. And in part is because you go from spending all this time with the people around you who make you feel the best in the world to back to your kind of crappy, day-to-day, humdrum sort of life. So it's sort of a good example of the fact that the furry fandom is there for furries, and when you take them away, furries kind of struggle a bit. All right, let's finish up by talking about what furries aren't as a group. So furries are not the same thing as bronies. The fact that some people will look at this and go, ugh, ponies is a good example of that. Although people were pretty good here, thank you. What's interesting is that the furry and the brony fandoms actually overlap quite a bit. About 20 to 25% of furries call themselves bronies. And on the flip side, about 20% of bronies call themselves furries. We also study bronies. So there is some overlap, although there's sort of a lot of debate about whether or not furry counts as brony or not. And what's even more amusing is that furries and bronies will constantly throw each other under the bus if it helps them. So when bronies are being picked on, furries go, oh, I'm not a brony, those guys are weird. And bronies will say, and when we do surveys of them, furries, oh god, those people are weird, crazy fetishists, under the bus. I'm not one of those. Despite the quiet, sort of timid one, fans of Fluttershy, tends to be actually the biggest bronies. They were the biggest fans of the show. They were the least likely to be bullied, and they were also the most likely to be socially anxious. Pinkie Pie fans, kind of the party-loving animal, the party animal of the group, they were the biggest fans of being around other bronies, and they had the least social anxiety. And Rainbow Dash fans, they were the most closeted of the bronies, they were the least narcissistic, and they were the most likely to also be furry. So, something to keep in mind. Obligatory key point. Alright. Furries are also not therians. The media gets this one wrong all the time. They say furries are people who think they're animals. No. Furries are people who are fans of anthropomorphic animal characters. Therians are people who self-identify with non-human animals. About 10 to 20% of furries fall into this category, but the vast majority of furries do not think that they're a non-human animal. We can see this in some of the questions we've asked. When we say, would you become non-human if you could? When you ask the average American that question, they're really confused. Like, what the hell does that mean? Although 10% of them agreed with it. 40% of furries say, yeah, I would become non-human if I could. But 60% of therians said yes. So therians are much more likely to agree with this question. When we asked, do you feel not entirely human? Again, 7% of the average American were really confused by this question and said, are you sure? I drank a bit last night, so maybe. 1 in 3 furries kind of agrees with the sentiments, but almost 90% of therians say, yeah, I don't feel entirely human. So this is really one of the defining features of being a therian, and what makes therians very different from furries. Now to point out, when therians identify with non-human animals, they're not looking down and saying, I have paws, not hands. If you were to do a genetic test, you'd find wolf DNA. No. It tends to be a much more spiritual or psychological thing. They say, I've got a spirit of an animal trapped in a human body, or I've got sort of the mind of an animal trapped in a human body. It's not the case that they're having physical hallucinations. And to sort of test whether this was, someone asked, oh, are they just saying that for attention? Well, we actually tested it with a special, it's called a TAT, or an IAT rather. It's something that you can't really fake. It's based on the reaction times, and it looks at the way your mind works. And what we found is that for therians, more than furries, the concept of animal and the concept of me actually overlap. So it's really hard for them to think about me in a way that doesn't also activate the concept of animal. And this is something that does not happen in the average college student or the average American or the average furry. So it really is getting down to the level of the way their mind is functioning. It's as if the self and animals are really inextricable from one another, the therians. Furries are not a fetish. So I mentioned this already before, but just to sort of drive the point home, they're a fan group like other fan groups. And I like to, if I could do anything with my sort of life, it would be to stop the media from including sex in the definition of furries. A lot of times you'll see definitions like, furries are people who like anthropomorphic animal media, and also like furry porn. Because you wouldn't say this for any other fan group. You wouldn't say, video gamers are people who like video games, and also occasionally like video game porn. It sounds really weird. And you could say, but hold on, there is video game porn out there, right? So then I'd say, well, yeah, but that's not what makes a video gamer a video gamer. In the same way, just because there is furry porn, that's not what makes a furry a furry. So just because furries are accepting of sex, just because furries acknowledge that pornography exists, doesn't mean that that's what furries are about. Furries are not deviants. Now, statistically, furries are rare. Most people are not furries. But furries are no more likely to be violent or to have any kind of psychological disorder. We've looked at furries, they're no more likely to have anxiety disorders or depressive disorders, OCD, ADHD. Furries are not more likely to have been diagnosed with anything, with one exception. Asperger's is about 2.5 times more prevalent in the furry fandom than the general population. This is Asperger's syndrome or high-functioning autism. We don't think, however, that's unique to the, we don't think that's unique to the furry fandom, though. We think that any fan group is more likely to have a higher proportion of people with Asperger's, in part because one of the defining features of Asperger's is a strong interest in some particular thing. And if you're a fan, you have a strong interest in some particular thing, so it kind of makes sense. So not unique to the furry fandom. Furries are not maladjusted, unlike our good friend Fox Dad here, who is very upset that his daughter does not want to be a furry like he is. He is furious about this sort of thing. So it was funny to me. All right, and to this end, the idea that furries are not deviants, our research team has actually started putting out PSAs trying to sort of inform the public that, hey, furries are pretty normal. They're just like anyone else. They have the same needs as anyone else. They have the same sort of desire to be loved and sort of cherished by other people. They don't like to be bullied just like anyone else. The story is that furries are surprisingly normal. This is the story that a lot of the media gets wrong. They look for what's the weird thing about furries, and the reality is that when you follow furries around, They're just like anyone else. They have a weird interest, but that's about it. So that's sort of the end of my talk here. If you're interested in this work, I encourage you to go to furryresearch.org where you can see all of our data online. You can go to firstscience.com and download our book for free. If for whatever reason you're really eager to get a hold of me and email me with questions, that's where you can do it there. Yeah, and I'm gonna look for my book. And otherwise, I've got like 10 minutes or so for questions, so thank you all very much. So yes, in the back.
Okay, so when you were doing back with your original statistics, saying what kind of education level furries have.
Yeah.
Could you maybe break it down, see how many of those furries are tradespeople?
Yeah, so there are some furry tradespeople. Where you tend to see the most furries going into are the hard sciences, the graphic arts, and IT. So most furries who are getting degrees, that's where you'll tend to find them.
The reason I asked that is to come to Edmonton, maybe it's just because it's an Edmonton thing. I was surprised how many furries and whatnot I found that were dedicated tradespeople, be it mechanics, carpentry, electricians.
That's sort of burden after all.
Yeah,
yeah, it is.
And there are almost certainly regional differences in that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe that's more regional. I was just curious to see how that number broke down actually.
We don't have the exact numbers. It's been a few years. We've been meeting in one of the upcoming surveys. We want to ask about that again because a lot of people ask about it. But yeah, it's a great question. We do know that most people, it's IT, hard sciences, and graphic arts, but there's a smattering of everything in there. So, yes.
You mentioned like feral and anthropomorphic. Have you done any studies on, say, realism versus cartoon fursuits? Or fursonas?
I guess that's sort of what we're hoping to go for with anthro and feral, but I guess it's not quite the same thing. We can certainly test for it. That's certainly something we can ask about in an upcoming survey. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's a good question. Yeah. Let me get back to you on that. Yes, in the back there.
Is there like the two websites that you showed before? Can we find this like PowerPoint on there?
It's not on there. If you really, really want this presentation and a better version of it, if you go on YouTube and go Nuka, and I'm Nuka by the way, go Nuka at TFF, Texas Furry Fiesta, or Nuka at BLFC, or Nuka at Anthrocon. I give this talk a lot, and Nuka at TFF is the most recent one. You get this entire talk there. If you want a copy of the slides, email me, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of the slides. Yeah, it's a huge file. It's like a 60 megabyte file, so I might send you like a Dropbox link or something. But yeah, I'm absolutely happy to give the slides out.
Could you go back to 2 slides so I can record the website?
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
If you want the slides, email me there, and I'm happy to send them to you. So, yes.
Done any looking into the motivations for suiting, whether there's more positive motivation that I like this character or negative, I just want to be anonymous?
No, that's a good one. One of the reasons we haven't.
I have it.
Oh, thank you. One of the reasons we haven't is because it's really hard to do group-specific surveys. So, for example, if we wanted to study fursuiters, only 1 in 2 to 1, or sorry, 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 furries is a fursuiter. As a result, if we ask 100 furries, only 20% of them are going to be a fursuiter. So we have to ask bigger and bigger numbers to get a smaller number of people. That said, we've got an ongoing project right now to try to recruit certain smaller demographics. So we can send, so it's called the FurP, it wasn't my name, Fur Project. I didn't name it. My colleague basically wanted to have a database available so furries can take a survey and get lumped into a bunch of different categories. So if you're transgender, you get lumped into a category. If you're a fursuiter, you get lumped into a category. So if we want to do a study on transgender furries or fursuiters or artists or, yeah, we can get on a mailing list and get data from 500 transgender furries or 1,000 fursuiters or 300 artists or, so we're working on putting that together right now. So when we have that up and running, that is absolutely the kind of question that I want to ask. So thank you. Oh, wait, I just remembered as well. At Anthrocon in 2 weeks, we're doing a survey. And I think one of the people who's working with us is actually doing a big thing on motivations for fursuiters. It's not a survey, it's a giant focus group, but we'll hopefully tap into some of those questions. Yeah. Yes, in the back there.
Right. I did miss the first half of the panel, so I apologize if this was covered. But
No worries.
You mentioned Therians.
Yep.
How would you differentiate Therians from other kin? Because I know, like, I've known Therians and other kin, and there seems to be a very big friction and animosity between the two roots?
So I'm always scared to give these definitions because invariably there will be a Therian or another kid in the room who will tell me why I'm wrong. So I will endeavor to do my best, and you may correct me if I'm wrong. To the best of my understanding, Therians identify with animals that things that are of this wolves, foxes, things that exist. Otherkin is a much broader category that can include things like dragons or fairies or things that are not necessarily real. That is the closest definition I've got. I'm not an expert, and I'm quite certain you should talk to Therians and Otherkins who are better informed on the subject than I am.
Because I've had the one Therian tell me, like, he tried to, he almost called, like, Therians is more like a spiritual connection, whereas Otherkin believe, like, they actually are the animal that they believe, that they call themselves. So, but it almost seems like we almost define the Therians believe that they are the animal, but it's like.
To the best of my, okay, sorry, did you want to?
You can say what you're saying, and I have.
Because to the best of my understanding, a Therian, it does not matter that, again, Therians can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert. To the best of my understanding, there's no distinction necessarily between whether it's spiritual or psychological, or it's a Therian identifies with the animal despite whatever the nature of it happens to be. And again, there may be a distinction within the Therian community, whether it's spiritual or psychological or physical, or what the nature of it may be. We study Therians, we haven't studied them that much, and my colleague Dr. Garbassi is really the person who is writing the book on Therians right now. So she's the one who's, yeah.
On that, I found like there's two separate Therians and the ones that fit in the middle. There's the ones where it is a part of your personality. Those are the ones that will start meowing in their sleep and such. You also get the ones where it's a separate entity in your head and you can actually go and talk to them.
And again, one of these I'll mention as well, like with furries, I imagine there's a considerable diversity within the community in terms of how they think about the subject. So, does that answer your question?
I can add in on to that if you like.
Sure.
Therian generally covers both. A person that A, considers their spirit to be in whole or in part a real world animal, or B, considers themselves spiritual, not like a totem animal, but associating with that animal very tightly. Otherkin tends to be a term that covers the whole gamut. Anyone that believes their spirit in any way to be in whole or in part, not human. That includes people that say, "Oh, I have a spirit that walked in me." It gets into really crazy stuff, but
yeah.
You can say technically both are correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, in the front there. Go ahead. Or oh yeah, you and then.
Yeah, just with having a persona and being able to have a different personality, and of course, with everything you said about how females seem more uncomfortable with furry smut, how is the male gaze in the fandom?
So to the best of my knowledge, we haven't formally, systematically tried to study it yet, but we do suspect, our hypothesis is that a lot of the art is directed towards a male audience, and as a result, it tends to focus on the things that you would think that a male would be interested in, whether it's a gay male or, so for example, the example I always use is given that a big chunk of the fandom is comprised of gay males, you find gay male arts. And they're, if you're a female, if you're a lesbian, or if you're just a female who likes, heterosexual artwork, this will not appeal to you. This is not a thing that is directed towards you as an audience, so it's just not. But there's also issues as well, for example, body image issues or issues of objectification. So if every female character you see in the furry fandom is, a bimbo character, or it's done up to be, just sort of a piece of meat to be owned, it's not exactly painting a flattering picture of women in the fandom. And so we can understand why there may be bigger issues with the way women are represented in artwork. We're looking at doing more of this. Sort of in the future. It's one of the things that we'd like to sort of continue studying. But that's sort of a hypothesis going forward, is that's what we're suspecting is going on. And we've done some focus groups with on women in the fandom, and found that's a lot of the things that came up was those sorts of being upset with sort of the way women are portrayed in artwork in sort of that way. If that answers your question. Yeah. Yes.
I was just going to ask, are there any fandoms you haven't gotten to really delve into yet that you would be interested in pursuing after you've kind of exhausted the furry realm?
We will never exhaust the furry realm. I've been doing this for 8 years.
We need a break from the furry realm.
Oh, I'll never need a break from it, but we do, so we do anime fans, we do My Little Pony, we do fantasy, sport fans. We want to get into LARPers. want to get into, I always forget the damn acronym, the SCA, Society for
Okay,
Creative.
yeah, yeah.
Civil War reenactors. We love to go to science fiction conventions, and I think the most recent grant that we got, I think we put in that we want to go to science fiction conventions. It'd be nice to go to San Diego Comic-Con. I think I would shoot myself because it's so big. I would just be overwhelmed. Yeah, the list of all the fandoms that we want to study just continues to grow.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's based on where we're located. Can we find a convention near where one of us is located that's easy to go to and do research at? So Anime Fans came up because my colleague in Texas has A-Con.
Yeah.
30,000 person Anime Con fan right on his doorstep, so it's super easy to do. In contrast, trying to go Civil War reenactors is going to involve hours and hours of travel for all of us, which makes it a little harder practically. It's also a matter of where we have connections or we have our feet in the door. It's really hard, as you might imagine, for some of these groups to just walk up and say, "Hi, we're scientists, we want to study you." If you can imagine if some stranger walked up to you and said, "Hi, I'm a scientist, I want to study furries," you're going to be,
There's the door, we prefer you use the window.
Yeah. Well, even when our research team started doing research, it was really hard the first couple of years to get the ball rolling because a lot of furries were understandably very reluctant to trust our research team. They said, well, what are you really looking for? Like, what do you really want to study? So, yeah, it's other fandoms maybe like that as well. So there's a huge list that we want to study. Yes?
Just a question going back real quick to that final thing where you said that furries are less likely to be, crap, what was it? It was in the deviant section on violence thing. No more violence. Do you find, like with certain other groups that are on the outside, that they've done similar studies that they might have actually been less violent?
So we didn't have really good data on this, so I'm hesitant to draw strong claims about it. But as far as we know, nothing stood out. These furries weren't dramatically more violent. This actually comes in the coattails of that case in California. There was a triple homicide in California recently where everyone involved, the murderers and the victims, all happened to be furry. And so one of the things we've had to defend is we've had the media coming up to us saying, so are furries all murderers? No. Oh, but people put on fursuits, they become more anonymous, right? Yes. So does that mean that they use that anonymity to commit murder? No. Do they commit the murder in the fursuit? Well, no, so it had nothing to do with it. But yeah, it's one of the things that we're looking into precisely because of this.
Well, the funny thing is, you see about them.
Am I short on time? Do we have to shut it down, or?
We need to start wrapping up.
Yep. Okay. So we'll get out of the room here so they can clear it out for the next thing. I am happy to stand outside afterwards and take questions afterwards, though. And if you see me running around the con, flag me down, ask me questions.